Let's come back to MotoGP, shall we, and talk about more things we can't predict. The Ducati decision, it's something, we did speak about it last weekend, but it feels important to do it again because after the weekend, we've had Bagnaia coming out saying, or perhaps not saying, but intimating that he would prefer Miller as his teammate because he's a known quantity. Perhaps he might be able to actually get the better of him. But then you've got Miller saying, well, actually, you look at Enea and he's probably the guy that's going to nick my seat. Jorge Martin, another crash, no points after, another fall. He was the hot property at 1 minute, but if he keeps falling, he's Ducati aren't going to trust him for his consistency on the factory bike, Keith. So what do they do? If it was you, who's next to Bagnaia?
8 bikes on the grid were always going to cause a problem. And it's caused a problem for Ducati rather than everyone else, like we probably thought it would. 8 bikes on the grid we thought may be an advantage for Ducati to collect data and to make their guys, faster everywhere where they could. But in the end, it's turned into a bit of a nightmare, hasn't it? Bastianini, would you put him up with Bagnaia? I think that'll antagonise Bagnaia. I think the beast has got a little bit about him that might just start to batter Bagnaia a little bit. I think the Jack Miller and Bagnaia fit is quite good in the factory team. Pramac have got factory bikes. You could shift Bagnaia across into Pramac. I think Bagnaia is on a Ducati contract rather than on a team contract, so that does make a difference. It means Ducati can put him where they want to. I think it'd be a bit of a smack in the teeth for Jack Miller to kick him out of the main factory team. But, they are ruthless. People are ruthless in these teams. They do want to make the moves that they need to make. Zarco, has he performed in the manner that he should have done at the moment? Probably not. He's not where he ought to be, although the point scoring situation is so, I can't believe it, how low the point scoring is at the top end of things because, they're taking points off each other every weekend. It's a different result. I mean, Bastianini, you would think would be leading this championship with 3 race wins, but he's not. It's still Quartararo who's pumping in the consistent points. Who would I put in the team? Bastianini is the fly in the ointment, isn't he? Because what do you do with someone with that amount of talent that's consistently putting the deal together? I don't think they've got a choice. I think he's got to go in the factory team. I think it's almost a no-brainer. If he keeps performing in the way he's doing at the moment, he's got to go in the factory team. Will that cause a bit of disharmony in there? More than they have at the moment, let's put it that way. Jack Miller back at Pramac, still on a factory bike. He liked it at Pramac. They liked having him at Pramac. That would work quite well. And then shake the rest up. It's something they've got to do. I mean, Ducati isn't performing across the board lower than the 3 we've talked about, really, is it?
Andrew Long has suggested slightly something different. Why can't you give Enea a full factory bike in 2023, but keep him in the Gresini team or do a swap with Jorge Martin? Another thing to consider are obviously the 2 Suzuki riders. Are Ducati interested in a 2020 world champion? If Andrew was Ducati, he would be providing Enea with factory upgrades this year where possible, and I imagine then keeping him in Gresini with a full factory bike.
Factory upgrades are a bit tricky. If you're not on a factory bike, this year's factory bike, nothing fits. It's all, the new factory 2022 bikes are, there's not much that crosses over between the two. And sometimes you can get a factory bit and it just doesn't work. It's as soon as you bolt it on, you think, what am I doing with this? As I've said before so many times, a factory bike is not sometimes the easiest of the options because a factory bike is a full prototype and you've not gone through the full range of testing with it. So you don't know whether it's going to work in the way that you expect it to work at any given circuit. Whereas, like I've said again many times, Bastianini's bike, they've been through that data range already with everything that they've tried bolting on, and they know what to do with that bike when they arrive at a track, and they can improve it to whatever its 100% degree is. Whereas a prototype bike is a different kettle of fish. There's just subtleties to it that you can't just dial in straight away. We've said it before, FP1, FP2, FP3, these are qualifying for qualifying. It's not like a free practice where you used to be able to go and bung a few bits and pieces on it and give it a try and see how it went or try some different adjustments. Yeah, you do. But if you go too far the wrong way, you've lost those qualifying for qualifying places. And nowadays, you've got to go through the qualifying two as quickly as possible, because there's only 2 places that come up from qualifying 1. And if you're not one of them, then you're back on the 5th row of the grid. So it's pretty intense nowadays in MotoGP through those where they're looking for the incremental changes. I still can't get my head around what I do with bloody Ducati. I'm sitting here thinking about it while you ask the question, and while I'm chuntering away here, I'm thinking to myself, what I can't imagine the pain they're going through at the moment. I think what you do in this situation is you just relax with what you've got, do the best with what you've got at the moment, and then shake it all up later. If they've got the contracts with the riders, they can move them around as they want to later in the year.
I think the only thing we can be sure of is Bastianini will be on the very latest bike next year. Now, if Ducati can convince him, as the question says, to stay at Gresini, that would solve a problem for Ducati, wouldn't it? But it's all going to be about that. If Bastianini's, I want to be in the factory team on paper, exactly, Keith. Yeah, on paper, it's a no-brainer, as Keith says. Bastianini is the guy, 3 wins, and he's the only guy up there in the championship at the moment. So, but maybe he would be happy at staying at Gresini another year. And if they can convince him, look, you'll have the same bike as the factory team, you'll be with the team you're with now that you feel great with, maybe he'd go with that. Now, there were some rumours coming out that Jack Miller has been talking to KTM. Now, that's not a shock, because Jack's manager is Aki Ayo, who, of course, knows KTM very well. And also KTM, but having said that, KTM showed interest in Jack previously when Jorge Lorenzo was sort of looking at maybe coming back to Ducati, and that might have been at Pramac, and Jack might have lost out there. KTM, it seems, did make an offer to Jack of, well, if you need somewhere else. So it wouldn't be a surprise for either reason if they are interested in Jack again, and certainly that's what Italian TV believe, that that there is contact there. There is perhaps an offer there. So Jack does have other options outside Ducati if he doesn't want to stay, perhaps by moving to Pramac. We've got to see. Jorge Martin, as you say, Harry, is the interesting one. He was, of course, signed before Bastianini by Ducati. They both, came up to MotoGP at the same time, but Martin was the first pick, if you like. And he's on the latest bike. He's further up the ladder at Ducati, but, the results are not there. There's still people that believe Martin is in contention for the second seat. Because as Keith says, 2 Italians in that team. We've seen Dovi and Iannone. There was a bit of friction there in the end, wasn't there? Maybe Ducati don't want that situation again. But I think it all depends on what Bastianini, if they can keep him happy at Gresini, I think that'll solve a problem for them.
One of the things that should be just underlined a bit here is the further down the pecking order team-wise that you are, the less you have in the way of technicians and the like. It's very difficult to, like the big factory team have all the data engineers, software engineers, all the people that are right at the cutting edge of development. When you move into an independent team or further down the order, you lose that strength of personnel that you would have in the full factory team. And if you're running a prototype 2022, 2023 Ducati, you need top men to be able to read what's going on with that bike, you need data engineers who can look at the screen and work it out really, really quickly. And obviously that talent is being bred through the paddock more than ever now. But if you're in a slightly lesser independent, it is only slightly, but it is still lesser. If we take it away from Ducati and go to, Lucio Cecchinello for Honda, he hasn't got anywhere near like the personnel that Repsol have got. And they get first call at the end of the day back to the factory when you want that, fiber link back to the factory for more information. It's they're first in line for it. So I think that there is a lot to be said for being in a factory team if you're on a factory bike.
And Bastianini's results this year, 3 wins, great. But what's his next best result? 8th, I think. He's got this bit of an issue where when things don't work for him, he's not getting on the podium, which is really his only weakness at the moment. But as he says, he's very reliant on the front tyre. So if the front tyre is not quite working for him, that's where he struggles. And as Keith says, maybe with more engineers around, they could help iron that out. Maybe that's what he needs. But as I say, I think with the position he's in a very strong position. Bastianini and his manager, Carlo Panat, who knows Ducati very well. He's placed a lot of riders at their factory over the years, hasn't he? So I think they're in a strong position to say, look, this is the deal we want, and get the best possible bike team package.
Well, I was just going to say, on top of that, and when Jorge Martin isn't crashing out and not scoring points, he's either getting pole position or scoring on the podium. So, to add to the debate that they have, MotoGP continues to roll on. I think we'll leave it there for now. Thank you, gents. Every time I think, we might not have quite enough to talk about, you always surprise me, and there's always something to talk about when it's MotoGP, when it's a season like this as well. And of course, the next Grand Prix, a couple of weeks' time, the Italian Grand Prix return to Italy, and we'll be back next week, same time, same place to preview it all. In the meantime, though, make sure you are tuned in across crash.net for all the latest news, analysis across the week, and then we will be back with you once more. Get your questions in, leave them in all the usual places, comments section, tweet, Instagram or Facebook us. Just search Crash MotoGP. Please do leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you right back here next week. Bye-bye.